All right, welcome to a deep dive into 1984. We're not just going to hit the main plot points. We're going to explore why this book is more relevant than ever.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that makes 1984 so powerful is just how real it feels, you know?
Yeah, you're right, the atmosphere.
Yeah, like you're right there with Winston.
It's London, April 4th, 1984. The clocks strike 13. I mean, right off the bat, something's not right.
Totally. It's like this immediate sense of unease, like the world is out of whack. And then we meet Winston Smith, our main guy. He's 39, varicose ulcer. He's just worn down.
He feels real, like someone you could see walking down the street.
Yeah, he's not some superhero.
Not at all.
Oh.
And yet he's committing thought crime just by writing in this diary.
Exactly. And that's what Orwell just nails right away. The idea that your thoughts aren't even safe in this society. The telescreens are always watching. The thought police are always listening. Big Brother is everywhere.
It's like when you're online and you feel like someone's watching you, but magnified 1,000 times over.
Yeah. Oh, totally. No, I think that's a very human reaction. And I think Orwell was really tapping into this fear of surveillance, of losing control over your own thoughts and your privacy, which is even more relevant today in the age of, data collection and social media.
Okay, so we got Big Brother and the thought police. Those are pretty obvious forms of control, right?
Right.
But then Orwell throws in these smaller, almost subliminal details, like even the gin is terrible.
Oh, yeah, the victory gin.
Victory gin.
It's like this perfect example of how the party controls every aspect of life, even the smallest pleasures. Like they give you this cheap substitute, and you're supposed to act like you enjoy it.
Right, it's all part of this big act, right? This happy, unified society.
Exactly, this facade.
Makes me think of those Instagram feeds where everyone seems so happy and successful all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know it's not real.
Yeah.
But it makes you question yourself,
Yeah. Totally. It's like that insidious nature of propaganda, right? It plays on your insecurities, your desires, your need to belong. And in 1984, it's relentless. The slogans, the posters, the misinformation, it's all designed to kind of warp people's perceptions.
Which brings us to doublethink and the party slogans. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. How can you believe that?
That's the power of doublethink, right? It's not just about accepting contradictory ideas, it's about believing them at the same time. It's about getting rid of objective truth.
And we see that in Winston's job. He's literally rewriting history at the Ministry of Truth to fit the party's current agenda.
Yes.
It's like how some countries today try to erase or downplay historical events that don't make them look good.
Precisely. Orwell understood that whoever controls the past controls the present. And by constantly revising history, the party keeps its power.
There's that crazy scene where Winston finds proof, like actual proof, that the party fabricated evidence. But even holding it in his hands, it doesn't matter. It's terrifying.
It really shows how fragile truth is under a totalitarian regime, right? When facts can be manipulated or erased, what can you trust?
So if the party controls everything, the media, the past, people's thoughts, is there any hope?
Winston thinks so. And he puts that hope in the polls.
The polls.
Yeah, the working class, like the huge majority of the population, they seem less controlled, less caught up in the ideology.
You get this sense of realness from them.
Yeah, like this raw humanity.
Like they haven't been totally sucked into the party's world.
Exactly.
They're kept busy with cheap entertainment and propaganda, like what they call prolifeed in the book.
It's kind of like today's reality TV and the endless stream of social media, isn't it? Distracting people from thinking critically about the world.
But is that enough to keep them down forever? Are they the key to taking down Big Brother?
That's the question that drives Winston's rebellion. He's searching for that spark of awareness, a sign that the proles can be more than just mindless followers.
Okay, so we have this crushing system, our protagonist, looking for hope. What's next?
Well, that's where Julia comes in. Bold, seemingly loyal to the party, but secretly a rebel. But her way of rebelling is very different from Winston's.
Yeah, she doesn't care about big theories or organized rebellion.
Right.
She's all about finding these little pockets of freedom, experiencing joy and pleasure, like in defiance of the party.
Exactly. And that's what makes their relationship so interesting. It's this tiny act of rebellion, a way of being human in this dehumanizing world. Their affair is this secret world where the party's rules don't apply.
And that rented room above Mr. Charrington's job.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a sanctuary.
It is.
But you get this feeling like something bad is going to happen.
Oh, of course. Because we know the party's always watching. And it makes you ask, can you ever really be free in a world where your most private moments are being monitored?
That feeling of dread is so intense in 1984. But one of the things that really creeps me out is how the party controls language itself.
Oh, yeah. Newspeak.
Newspeak. It's more than censorship, right?
Yeah.
It's like shrinking the vocabulary so people can't even think certain thoughts.
Right. It's like they're trying to make thought crime impossible by eliminating the words you need to even think it.
So, like, if you get rid of the word freedom from the dictionary, people might actually forget what it means.
Yeah, they might still use free in, like, simple ways, like, this is free with your purchase or whatever. But the big idea of freedom, like political or intellectual freedom, that would be gone.
It's crazy. It reminds me of how some social media sites try to, like, control language,
Yeah.
Censoring words and phrases.
Yeah, and they say they're doing it to stop hate speech or to stop misinformation, but it does make you wonder, like, who gets to decide what is and isn't okay to say?
And Orwell takes it even further in 1984. It's not just banning words, it's simplifying the whole language, the grammar, everything.
Yeah, exactly. No nuance, no ambiguity, nothing that could challenge what the party says. They even wanted to get rid of irregular verbs.
No more went or saw or thought. Just go, see, think.
Well, in their simplified version, yes.
It's like they're trying to turn language into a set of instructions.
Yeah.
Like no more art, no more depth.
And that makes it so much easier to control people. If you can control how they think, you can control their whole reality.
So Newspeak is basically like the language version of doublethink. It's all about limiting how people think and express themselves.
Right. And it shows us just how powerful language is, both for control and for resistance. That's why the party works so hard to control it.
It's a big warning, isn't it? We have to be careful about any attempt to control language, any attempt to make complex ideas simple, to stop people from thinking for themselves.
Absolutely. Orwell was really worried about totalitarian regimes and how they use language to manipulate people. And that's something we need to think about even today.
Okay, so Newspeak is scary. But what really got me was Winston's experience in the Ministry of Love, especially Room 101.
Oh, Room 101. That's like the ultimate symbol of the party's power, right? It's the ability to use your deepest fume against you.
And Orwell never tells us what's actually in there, does he? It's just this awful threat, this mystery that hangs over everything.
And that's what makes it so effective. Everyone has their own nightmare, their own worst fear. So whatever you imagine in Room 101 is probably way worse than anything Orwell could actually write.
Yeah, you're right. It's like that feeling when you know something terrible's about to happen, but you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
It's almost worse than the thing itself.
Yeah, it's the anticipation, the psychological torture that really gets to you. It makes you wonder, what are our limits? What would it take to break us?
You see these other prisoners in the Ministry of Love. They fall apart before they even get to Room 101. What do you think that says about fear and control?
I think it shows that the worst weapon the party has isn't physical torture. It's the fear of what might happen. It's the not knowing. They create this whole world of suspicion and paranoia, a world where you can't even trust your own family.
Like Parsons, right?
Yeah.
That guy seems so loyal to the party. And then his own kids turn him in for thought crime. It's so messed up. It shows you just how deep this control goes.
It's like they twist everything good. Trust, love, family, all those things that make us human. The party doesn't just want obedience. They want to own your thoughts, your emotions, your whole identity.
And to get it, they'll do anything. Isolation, sleep deprivation, psychological games, and then that threat of Room 101.
And that's what makes Winston betraying Julius so heartbreaking. He's facing his worst fear, and he snaps. He betrays the one person he really loves just to save himself.
It's a reminder that anyone can break, even the strongest people. It makes you think, what would I do? What would I be willing to give up to protect myself, to protect the people I love?
That's the question Orwell wants us to ask. Because it's not just some made-up story. It reflects the choices we have to make every day. In a world where our privacy, our freedoms, our thoughts, they're all under threat.
So, Winston betrays Julia. He's broken. He seems to accept Big Brother's reality. Is there any hope left at the end of the book? Or is it just depressing?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The ending of 1984 is dark, for sure. But it's not totally clear-cut.
You're talking about that last scene where Winston seems to have completely embraced the party, even says he loves Big Brother. But it's hard to tell, is he really broken, or is there some part of him that's still fighting?
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the ending so powerful. It makes us Think about whether the human spirit can ever truly be crushed, or if there's always some spark of resistance left.
But even if Winston has found a way to resist in his mind, what about everyone else? Can a system like Oceania ever be overthrown?
Well, that brings us back to the proles. Remember, Winston thought they were the only hope, the vast majority of people who haven't been totally brainwashed by the party.
But they're kept distracted,
Yeah.
uneducated, focused on just surviving. Can they really challenge the party? Or was Winston just fooling himself?
That's the question that sticks with you long after you finish the book. And it's a question for our world, too, because we're facing a lot of the same challenges today.
You mean like the rise of authoritarianism? All the propaganda and misinformation out there? The way our privacy and freedoms are being eroded?
Exactly. It makes you wonder, what will it take for people to wake up and see what's happening?
Okay, so we're back. And I gotta say, thinking about 1984 in the context of today's world is kind of freaking me out.
Yeah, it's definitely not a feel-good story. But I think that's the point, right?
Yeah.
1984 isn't just some entertainment. It's a warning. It shows what happens when power goes too far and ideology becomes everything.
And we see those same things happening today, don't we? Surveillance is everywhere. The news is full of spin. Sometimes it feels like there's no truth anymore, just everyone shouting their own version of reality.
You know, Orwell was writing after World War II. He saw those totalitarian regimes firsthand. He saw how they used propaganda and censorship and how they controlled information to manipulate a whole society. 1984 isn't really a prediction. It's more like a cautionary tale.
Yeah, like he gave us a blueprint for what to look out for. And maybe that's why it feels even more relevant now than when it was first published. I mean, look at social media. It's like we're all trapped in these echo chambers, right?
Exactly. Those algorithms are deciding what we see, what we read. They're feeding us information that confirms what we already believe. It's a lot more subtle than the propaganda in 1984, but it can be just as effective.
It's like that saying, a lie told often enough becomes the truth. Except now, it's not just one lie, it's a million little lies, all designed just for you, based on your own biases. It's like information overload.
And that's another thing Orwell was brilliant about. It's not just about lies, it's about the sheer volume of information, the 24/7 news cycle. It leaves you feeling exhausted, like you can't think straight anymore.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. Sometimes I just want to unplug, disconnect from everything. It's like the more information we have, the less we actually know. It's crazy.
But that's why we need books like 1984. It reminds us that we can't just sit back and passively consume whatever's thrown at us. We have to think critically. We have to be active in shaping our own reality.
Okay, so critical thinking, that's key.
Yeah.
But what else can we do? I mean, these forces we're talking about, they feel huge, systemic. What can one person even do?
It's definitely daunting. But one of the things Orwell warns against is inaction. The proles in the book, they represent that silent majority, happy with their simple pleasures, ignoring all the bad stuff happening around them. And it's only when their own freedoms are threatened that they even think about fighting back.
And by then, it's too late, right? The party's already won. There's no chance for change.
Exactly. Orwell's message is pretty clear. We can't just sit around and watch. Silence equals complicity. If we see injustice, if we see our freedoms being taken away, we have to speak up, we have to resist, even if it seems like a small thing.
Okay, but what does that even look like? What can one person do, short of, like, starting a revolution?
It starts with being aware, like we've been talking about. Recognizing the ways we're being manipulated, the biases in the media, how technology can be used to control us.
And then, do we just, like, complain about it on social media?
Social media can be useful, for raising awareness, getting people organized, but it can also be a trap. It's important to have those real-world conversations, connect with people who share your values, support organizations that are fighting for the things you believe in.
So it's about being an active citizen, not just a consumer.
Right.
Like voting, volunteering, speaking truth to power, all those things they used to tell us in school.
Exactly. Those things may seem small, but they're how we build a free and just society. And it's up to each of us to decide, what role are we going to play? Are we going to be like Winston, fighting for truth even when it seems hopeless? Or are we going to be part of that silent mass, just letting it all happen?
Man, that's a powerful image. And it goes back to that question, can a system like Oceania ever be overthrown? Or is it just like a cycle that keeps repeating itself?
I don't think Orwell gives us a clear answer, but he does give us hope. Remember Winston's line, if there is hope, it lies in the proles. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, human connection, empathy, the desire for freedom, those things can be powerful.
So it's not about waiting for some big revolution. It's about all the little acts of resistance. The choices we make every day, choosing love over fear, truth over lies, and ultimately humanity over oppression.
And that's the real legacy of 1984, I think. It's not just a dystopian novel, it's a call to action. It's a reminder that the future isn't set in stone. We have the power to shape it, but only if we choose to engage, to resist, to fight for what we believe in.
This has been intense, a lot to think about. But you've helped me understand 1984 on a whole new level. It's more than just a book. It's a warning and a challenge. It's like a wake-up call.
I'm glad to hear that. And for everyone listening, I hope this deep dive into 1984 has gotten you thinking, maybe even a little bit paranoid. Keep asking questions, stay sharp, and don't let the telescreens win.